Have you ever had one of those mornings where you read something so crazy that you almost spit out your coffee? Well, almost, right? Well, that was me today with XRP, right? There's two bombshell announcements that are lurking on the horizon for October. And even as a kind of hardened XRP veteran, I had to do a bit of a double take here, right? Something big is brewing. And if you're an XRP holder like me, you want to grab a mug and get comfy because you're going to want to hear all of this. Now, hi, right? My name is Nick if you're new to the channel, and I'm just a regular guy who's been holding XRP for years. And I love my coffee mornings too, right? Now, these days, it kind of takes a lot to rattle me. I mean, after surviving the wild roller coaster of crypto, I no longer take my coffee in shock. I know, right? I've been on about it for months, but I'll admit, right? What's coming in, October, has me a little jittery, and it's not just the caffeine, right? Just imagine the US government potentially giving XRP its official blessing twice in the same month. It sounds insane, right? Well, that's exactly the rabbit hole that I fell into this morning. So let me talk about these two make or break October moments for XRP and why I'm feeling more optimistic than ever without, of course, losing my cool. So picture this, right? I'm sipping my espresso, scrolling through crypto news as usual. XRP's price is doing its thing, not much, shocks me these days anymore. But then I see this headline that makes me stop mid-sip, of course, right? The SEC pushes XRP ETF decision to October. So I raise an eyebrow, right? And I take another sip, right? The US Securities and Exchange Commission, yes, the very same SEC that dragged Ripple into the courts for years, just delayed its decision on not one, but two, but actually maybe multiple XRP exchange-traded fund applications. So instead of just giving an answer now, they've just kicked the can down the road for late October 2025. And I'm thinking to myself, October, you say. Now that's interesting. Why? Well, let me tell you, right? Now, if you're not familiar with the whole ETF thing, let me kind of break it down real quick in plain English, right? An ETF, an exchange-traded fund, is basically a way for regular people and big institutions to invest in something without actually holding it directly. Now, in this particular case, a spot XRP ETF would let people buy into XRP's price through the stock market, like buying a share of, XRP rather than actually figuring out crypto wallets and all of the exchanges. So it's kind of like putting XRP in a vending machine at the Wall Street cafeteria. Suddenly, everyone can grab a piece rather easily. Now, for years, the SEC has been a bit iffy about crypto ETFs. So the kind of fact that there are several XRP ETF proposals on their desk from big names like CoinShares, Grayscale, and 21Shares is a pretty big deal. It means that institutions are lining up to legitimize XRP. Now, the SEC delaying a decision isn't new by any stretch, right? They love their extensions. Like I love refilling coffee, of course, right? But, and here is the kicker, right? October isn't just another arbitrary delay, right? For most of these XRP ETF filings, late October is the final deadline. There's no more extensions after that. So the SEC basically has to kind of fish or cut bait, right? Now, either approve the ETF or flat out reject it. So, come late October, we're likely getting a yes or a no on whether an XRP ETF can trade on US exchanges. Now, that alone had me going, wow. Right? A couple of years ago, the idea of an SEC-approved XRP investment fund probably would have made me laugh through my nose, right? Now, at least it's still on the table, like we finally get an answer to all of this, right? It's there, it's finally on the table. So I'm already kind of buzzing from all of this ETF news when I scroll just a little bit further, and that is where the kind of plot thickens. Another post, another October teaser. Apparently, Ripple, that is the company that's behind XRP, could actually hear back on its national bank charter application by late October as well. So just wait for that, right? Ripple, a bank. I know it sounds a little bit like something out of a crypto kind of fantastic, right? It's chaotic, it's it's fantasy, pure fantasy in some cases, right? So I had to read it twice because back on July 2nd, Ripple quietly filed an application with the US Office of the Comptroller of the currency to become a federally chartered bank, more specifically, a crypto-focused national trust bank. Now, a national bank charter is pretty fancy talk for a license that basically lets you operate across all 50 states under federal oversight instead of dealing with all the patchwork of state-by-state regulations. So for Ripple, this could actually be huge. It means Ripple could offer custodial services for crypto or other banking services like nationwide, or at least services nationwide, without needing dozens of state licenses. In short, it's kind of like getting a golden ticket to the US federal system's chocolate factory, right? It's kind of like the thing that you would, at least it would actually make Ripple more legit in the eyes of larger and big institutions, right? So the same institutions who might actually want to use XRP or invest in it via, I don't know, let's say an ETF perhaps. Now the gears in my head, of course, are turning pretty fast and maybe faster than ever. So here is the timeline part, right? By regulation, the OCC generally has 120 days to give an answer on that charter application. Ripple applied in July 2nd. So count forward, basically the end of October is around the deadline for the OCC to either say approved or denied, or we need more time. Now technically we could see they could basically extend the review if something comes up, but late October is the rough kind of target here. So we potentially have two decisions landing in the same month: the SEC's ETF verdict and the OCC's bank charter verdict. Now at this point I put my coffee down gently because even I might drop it from this pure excitement. I mean seriously, right? October 2025 might be the most pivotal month for XRP since, well, ever. So let's think about the irony here then, right? For years, XRP holders have been waiting for the world to take this crypto seriously. Now, we went through kind of the SEC lawsuit hell starting in December of 2020. That was when basically the SEC called XRP an unregistered security and all but, tried to basically smother it to death. Now, many exchanges delisted XRP in a panic then, right? The price crashed from the heavens down to the absolute abyss. And I remember that day quite vividly, right? I spat out my coffee back then, of course, right? Watching my portfolio go up in flames. But fast forward, I was happy that I double dipped and I basically accumulated more around 17 cents. Ripple's fought the law and, for the most part, Ripple won here. By mid-2023, a judge ruled that XRP itself is not a security when sold on exchanges, giving us a huge victory and some clarity. Now, here is where we are in 2025, right? The SEC isn't, grudgingly accepting defeat, of course, right? It's actually considering approving an XRP-based investment product for the public. That's a 180 so hard that it actually gives me whiplash. And I'm not sure if you feel the same, but at least it would have if I was, there in the SEC room at the time. If I hadn't even seen so many twists and plot kind of twists within a single kind of lawsuit. It was just mental times. And the other part of this, or the other twist, was that XRP was often mocked as the banker's coin, right? Because Ripple worked with banks on cross-border payment technology. Now the joke was that it's so centralized it might as well just be a bank. Well, guess what, haters? Ripple literally said, fine, we'll become a bank. Ripple as a national bank. It sounds like a plot out of some kind of fintech thriller novel or something, right? If the charter is approved, Ripple could potentially hold deposits, custody crypto assets for big clients, and even apply for a Federal Reserve master account down the line. Rumor has it they've already filed. There's lots of debate about that too. Now, it's kind of like Ripple leaving up, or at least leveling up to kind of Bank 2.0, bridging the crypto and traditional finance in one foul swoop. Now, it's no surprise here, right? The idea has some traditional bankers sweating it, right? In fact, a bunch of major banks and credit union associations actually wrote letters to regulators basically saying, whoa, there, slow down. Please pause on letting Ripple become a bank. The translation is that the old guard is nervous. And honestly, if I were them, I would be nervous too, right? Ripple getting a federal bank license could be an absolute game changer, right? I had this funny image of kind of stoogey old bankers kind of reading about Ripple's application and doing their own kind of spit takes in, you know, some kind of mahogany-lined boardroom, right? It kind of made me chuckle anyway. So here I am, connecting all of these dots. In late October, we could get an SEC approval of an XRP ETF and a US bank charter for Ripple simultaneously. That's like vindication on two massive fronts, and all at once. Now, as long-term holder, at least an XRP holder that I am, I've got to tell you, it kind of feels a bit surreal at this point. For years, optimism was hard to come by, right? We'd see news of partnerships or rumors and get excited only to have price remain in this kind of, you know, static kind of level, or another kind of FUD bomb just drop and, you know, the price take a bit of a dive. Now, you know, we have real regulatory green lights within our reach. Am I excited? Heck yeah, right? Of course I am. But here's the thing. I'm also, you know, strangely calm about it all. Why? Maybe because after years of being on this ride, I've learned not to let my emotions actually swing too wildly here. Now, I've seen hype come and go. I've had moments I was sure that XRP would moon, and I've been burned by over expectations before. So now I keep a balanced mindset. I hope for the best, but I prepare for anything. It's kind of like I've achieved Zen master level in crypto patience. No more wild kind of coffee spit takes for me, just a steady sip as I watch the show unfold. But don't get me wrong, inside the optimism is bubbling, right? And I'm kind of keeping it in check, you know, outwardly anyway, right? You know the meme of that calm dog kind of sipping coffee while everything else is on fire? Well, in my case, everything's potentially on fireworks, and I'm the dog calmly sipping on coffee here, but with a tiny kind of excited little grin, right? That's my vibe going into October. Now, before I go any further down the line of the at least speculation rabbit hole here, let me just hit pause for a very important disclaimer. I need to say this, and please take it to heart, because this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. So it's important to do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so we had to get that out of the way there. It's one of those things, but trust me, as someone who's been around for a while, I co-signed you know, every word of that, right? Crypto will humble you very quickly. So, with the official no financial advice stamp in place, let's allow some, at least ourselves, to kind of dream a little bit here, right? What happens if these October dominoes fell, at least in our favor? Well, let's start with the ETF scenario then. Let's say late October arrives and the SEC perhaps, you know, begrudgingly goes approved for the first US spot XRP ETF. Instantly, there's going to be headlines on every financial outlet, right? First ever XRP ETF approved in the United States. Now, your neighbor who's probably never touched crypto might hear about it on the evening news. The psychological kind of impact on the market could actually be quite huge here, right? In fact, even before that day, there's a good chance that the anticipation alone could drive XRP's price upwards. It's kind of like people wanting to get in early, thinking that if an ETF is coming, big money will flow on in, so I should grab some now, right? Some XRP now whilst it's cheap. You know how it goes, right? Buy the rumor, possibly sell the news. Now, if the ETF gets approved and launches, well, we might see an initial spike and then, you know, counterintuitively a slight pullback in price. Why? Because those who did buy the rumor might actually sell on the news to lock in some profits. And I can totally imagine that, right? Because XRP can shoot up on the euphoria, then dip just a little bit as short-term traders cash on out. And in that moment, the skeptics will be like, ha, see, ETFs didn't do anything, sell-off time. But here is where it could get a little bit fun. Right, that dip, if it happens, may be short-lived, because once the ETF is actually live, now regular people can actually, and I should say institutional investors as well, can actually invest, right? Or at least who wouldn't have been able to invest in crypto before through the usual channels, can just toss straight into XRP their stock portfolio like any other asset. Retirement funds, hedge funds, you name it. It could start allocating a slice towards XRP via the ETF. So we're talking potentially billions of dollars of new liquidity over time. Now, some analysts believe that sustained inflows into these ETFs could trigger a major rally, the kind that propel XRP's price into the double-digit territory. Yes, double digits, as in at least $10 per XRP. Now, let that sink in. Right, XRP hasn't even broken $4 in its history, so $10 would be something entirely new, a price that many of us only really joked about or dreamed of in Reddit threads, suddenly becoming, well, plausible. Now, some experts have kind of thrown out some targets like $10, $15, even higher in the short term, but $10 is a nice round milestone, and a lot of people are eyeing that up now. And the ETFs, could actually be a catalyst to finally get there, at least to get us there, right? If you believing all the hype. Now, beyond the price, you've got to consider the validating effect of an ETF and a bank charter here, right? For years, hardcore XRP holders have been convinced that we're onto something big, while the broader crypto world either kind of laughed at us or completely ignored us. Now, if these kind of approvals do hit, it's basically a little bit of like validation, right? Like, hey, the US government and top financial regulators are essentially acknowledging XRP's here to stay and that Ripple can play with the big boys. That's bigger than any kind of price pump, at least in a way. It could actually open the doors to more exchange relistings XRP, more payment companies feeling safe to use XRP, maybe central banks giving it a second look for at least digital kind of settlements, right? The ripple effects, pun fully intended, are absolutely huge. Now, what about the bank charter outcome then? Well, let's just say that around the same time, the OCC gives Ripple the thumbs up to become a national, at least to become Ripple National Bank, right? Now, that would be pretty wild. It would be historical. And I don't think that any blockchain company has ever actually gotten a national bank charter in the United States before. So if that does happen, Ripple could potentially start offering services that only regulated banks can. For example, they could custody crypto for institutional clients under federal oversight. They could issue stablecoins or maybe other digital assets with regulatory blessing. They might even pursue, the Holy Grail, a Fed master account to plug into central banks' systems for real-time settlements. Now, from a kind of narrative standpoint, Ripple becoming a bank would actually be, also say to the world that crypto companies can actually grow up. The OCC doesn't just hand these things out like candy after all, right? You have to meet capital requirements, compliance standards, show that you can manage the risk. It's kind of like graduating from crypto high school to Wall Street college, right? And if Ripple pulls it off, it sets a precedent for others. It basically blurs the lines between fintech, crypto companies, and traditional banks. Now, what does that mean for the XRP asset then? Well, Ripple has always maintained that XRP and their company are separate things, right? Ripple is open sourced, or sorry, I should say XRP is open sourced, they say, etc., right? And it is true, right? XRP can exist without Ripple, of course. But let's also be real. Ripple getting more powerful and connected is kind of generally a bullish thing for XRP because Ripple uses XRP in some of its products and holds a significant amount of XRP in escrow as a treasury. Now, if Ripple as a bank becomes a reality, then I suspect that they'd be at least even more incentivized and better positioned to push XRP's utility globally. Maybe more banks could actually be willing to partner or use RippleNet if Ripple is actually, regulated like a bank. Maybe we could see XRP-backed stablecoins or, new financial products. Now, it's speculation, of course, but logically, a stronger kind of Ripple can mean a stronger XRP ecosystem. Now, I hopped into our community Discord to kind of let me tell you this, right? The chats there have been buzzing with all of those October developments. People are sharing memes of XRP rockets and October calendars circled in red. It's half excitement, half nervousness, right? One user joked that we should sell all of our kind of, at least send all of our kind of 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗍 an XRP Halloween costume, right? And not just for fun, but not sure it really helps in any way. But the enthusiasm, I guess, is kind of real. Is my point here. Another said that they're stockpiling espresso for the late October, so that they can actually stay up for all the breaking news. I chimed in with a good plan. I'll bring the donuts. It's a fun vibe, of course. Now, you're all welcome to come on by and say hi, especially as we kind of inch closer to the decision day. Now, on a personal note, I did a little reflection here, right? I've held XRP for a very long time, through thick and through thin. And at one point, I even had an infamous amount of XRP, over 10,000. I'm not even going to go into that, right? Because I did read somewhere that makes you part of the 4% crowd, right? Of all addresses that hold, 10,000 or more XRP. Now, I eventually did hit that and actually have exceeded that over the years. And let me tell you, it kind of felt like joining a bit of a rare club. Now, of course, I kind of realized holding a bag doesn't automatically, make you anything or rich or anything, right? It's what really does matter here is that the tech actually achieves, because all the rest of it is just kind of noise. But moments like what can happen in October, those are the kind of catalysts that we, crazy 4% club people have kind of been waiting for, right? It's kind of like holding a bit of a lottery ticket that's kind of slowly maturing over time, right? Except this lottery, you kind of believe in the fundamentals of, right? Now, sometimes friends ask me, why are you still into XRP? Isn't crypto all just hype? And usually I'd give them a kind of practical kind of spiel about fast transactions, Ripple's partnerships, and all the yada yada stuff, right? But after kind of learning about the ETFs and the bank central or bank charter timing, I had a new answer to them, right? It's because any day now, we might wake up to find out the rules of the game changed in our favor. Now, that is what October represents, the possibility of an establishment saying, okay, XRP, you're one of us now. And that's worth sticking around for. Now, speaking of sticking around, here's a quick side note, right? I occasionally trade a little bit of my XRP or rebalance for my kind of holdings here. And one platform that's stuck with me through thick and thin over the years is Kraken. Now, I like Kraken Pro because it's reliable. It has a solid, security track record and decent fees for pro trading. So if you're looking for a place to dabble, maybe feel free to check it out. Just know that the link in the description is an affiliate link, which basically means that if you use it and trade via signing up via that link, then it does actually kick back a small commission to the channel here that helps keep the coffee pot full, and it costs you nothing extra. So if you do go ahead and use it, thanks in advance. Otherwise, there's no pressure, as always. Anyway, now let's kind of allow ourselves a moment to just really imagine this, right? The climax of this story then. It's late October 2025. The leaves are turning golden and Halloween decorations are popping up. Spooky season vibes, right? But the only thing spooky is how fast my heart's beating as we approach decision days, right? I've got TweetDeck open. I've got multiple news alerts set. Maybe I'm live on Discord voice chat with some of you guys, doing a kind of watch party for the SEC announcement. Then bam, the news hits the wire. The SEC approves first XRP ETF. I almost didn't believe it until, I saw it for myself, right? Double take and all that. Did someone Photoshop all of this onto the news? No. Is it April Fool's? No, it's real. CNBC is talking about it. Bloomberg is running the headlines. I lean back, let out a long woo, and that's probably scares my cat to death. Now my phone starts blowing up with texts from two friends that I successfully converted into XRP holders, right? They're sending me rocket emojis saying things like, "we did it," in all caps. Twitter is an absolute chaos fire, XRP hashtags everywhere with ETFs trending, and the XRP army is flexing on everybody else. Even people who hate XRP are oddly silent or conceding. Well, I guess it's legit now. Now, I'd check the price. Maybe it's climbing up a little bit. Maybe it's jumped up by $1, by $1.20. Who knows, right? It's volatile for sure. I'm just grinning, I guess, from like all of this stuff that's going on in the background, right? Remembering the dark days of when XRP was stuck at 20 cents with no hope in sight. But just for a moment, the idea to buy more when it was cheap, right? But then just wait, right? The double feature isn't over, is it, right? Because just as I'm about to finally sip that celebratory coffee, there's another alert. The OCC grants preliminary approval for Ripple's bank charter. And at this point, I'm looking around for hidden cameras, right? Because it feels like someone is going through this elaborate prank on me, right? 2 green lights in a single week. Now, is that even allowed in crypto land? I run and refresh the news site and make sure that it's not a glitch. It's real. Ripple is on track to become an actual federally regulated crypto bank. I imagine that Brad Garlinghouse somewhere out there, popping champagne or maybe even something more sophisticated, but definitely celebrating nonetheless. And honestly, I feel like celebrating too. On Discord, some people joke, does this mean that I can call them bankers coin unironically now? Others say that it's time to apply for a job at Ripple Bank, and I hear they pay in XRP, right? They're all basically losing it in a kind of joyful way. And for me, right, I'm just going to exhale and going to get a little kind of quiet amidst all of the frenzy, because I'm thinking about the journey that it took to get there, right? From the 2017 bull hype to the lawsuit crash to holding through all of the uncertainty to now, right? Seeing validation. It's almost, well, emotional. Now, I'm not necessarily going to go out and buy out a Lambo the very next day or anything like that. In fact, I might not sell much at all, because if these developments pan out, it could actually just be the start of a much bigger, longer term climb. But I will treat myself to a nice dinner or something fancy, a new coffee machine or something like that, because darn it, diamond hands deserve to be rewarded, right? Now, that's the kind of dream scenario. Reality might choose its own path. Could be half of that happens. It could happen later than October, who knows? But just visualizing it gets me pumped, and honestly, it keeps me glued to this space day after day. But let me be real, or really all the way back in, I should say here. We've talked about a lot here. ETF delays and the hopes, the Ripple bank's ambitions, the price speculations, all the kind of delicious what ifs. Here's where I stand as of now. October 2025 has 2 big circles on my calendar, right? I'm cautiously optimistic here that at least one of these circles will bring good news, maybe even both. Now, if they do, that's going to mark a new chapter in the XRP story. One where, XRP isn't just the underdog or the black sheep of crypto, but a legitimate player embraced by regulators and big money. And if things don't go as we hope, then let's say the SEC denies the ETFs or the OCC drags its feet, well, I won't be selling my stash in despair, because the direction of things is quite clear. Crypto is getting integrated into mainstream bit by bit. And XRP has proven it's not going anywhere anytime soon, so it might take a little bit longer, but I believe its day in the sun will come. As a long-term holder, patience, it is my superpower. I've held this asset through so many kind of seasons here that a couple more months or even an extra year for the next opportunity is absolutely fine by me. Now, I'm in it for the end game, right? Not just an October fling. And you bet, right, I'm going to be sipping coffee, not spitting it out. And, as kind of all this news kind of rolls in, good or bad, maybe I'll even do a live stream on the decision day so that we can all virtually clink coffee mugs together. But here's one thing for sure, right? Being an XRP holder has never been boring. It's a story that just keeps evolving. And honestly, I'm happy to be along for this wild ride. Right now, if you've made it this far in the journey, then make sure to smash that subscribe button for me and check out the video that's queuing up on the screen.